How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 156. I am your way too excited host, Spencer Presley. Joining me on this review-tastic episode is John, aka Nyarly.
What's up?
And also joining me is a Macca full of Mac, Mac.
Hi.
That was somehow actually better than the last time you said hi on the show, which is really a testament to how bad that last one was.
Hi.
Mac, do you even remember how you said hello on your first episode here?
No, I don't.
It was like 30 seconds of silence followed by, huh? We were all very excited. We were high off the mask of New York cum stains and whatnot. So
I forget about that.
yeah, that was quite the hashtag ago. So
Oh,
I have assembled this A-team of sorts once again to talk about Atlus USA year in review, specifically for 2019. I meant on doing this back in January, but January ended up being a little bit busier than I thought because going to TaioCon, interviewing some people, and basically just scrambling to beat Tokyo Mirage Sessions as quickly but also as thoroughly as I can. So my whole timeline of stuff has been super out of whack. But you two have not been on the show since like December. Mac, I'll let you go first. What have you been up to since then?
I did Christmas. I did Christmas and that was fun. I got some pretty neat stuff. Then afterwards, I was playing Katherine Full Body, and in that time, I also slowly started to spiral into an episode of depression that eventually led to me going to counseling.
I think what you should have said is the depression first, and then you've been playing Katherine Full Body. It would have made more sense. Now people are just going to think Katherine Full Body puts you into spiraling fits of depression.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Real talk. One of my friends, he said like when he took him a few years to beat Catherine, and when I asked him why, it says because that game caused him way too much stress.
I can understand that. You know, just curious, what made you did you pick it up after release, or have you had it for a while and just now finally getting around to it?
I picked it up after release. So when we're recording this, I recently released my reviewing every game I played in 2019 video. Game in that video is in like playing order, so it ended up being like one of the last games I played in 2019. So yeah, I picked it up and then I just kind of sat on it for a while because I had other stuff I wanted to play, and like Catherine's great, but I've already played it, so it wasn't on my top priority.
Well,
but I actually finished today.
True Root. I know you were doing Ren. Did you do True Root Ren?
Yes.
Without going into spoilers, because God, we have talked about Katherine Full Body a lot on this show already. Thoughts on the extra special bonus night?
What the fuck?
That's a great description for it. So John, what have you been up to in the last like month and a half?
Getting my teeth drilled.
Ooh, fun.
So and then you got depression.
Yeah. But what I've actually been doing is, well, I've been playing TMS. I actually uploaded a kind of review video on my channel today, but that was kind of rushed. So
I have seen the
I'm gonna redo
thumbnail.
it.
I've seen the thumbnail. It's too late. You called it a review. We got to sew it in.
Well, I originally planned to be a review when I was writing it, but then I looked at my script. I'm like, okay, this is basically a review, so I figured I'd just put that in my thumbnail. But it just kind of ended up coming out rushed, so I'm gonna turn it into a proper review.
Not as rushed as the True Root ending for Rin, am I right, Mac?
What the fuck happened?
That's a great idea. Speaking of Catherine Fullbody, who's excited for that new Minions trailer dropping tomorrow?
Oh
Not me.
fuck, I forgot.
It's sad that like now, whenever I think of Catherine Fullbody, I'll have to think of Minions, but that is for a whole nother conversation.
Oh my god.
So we are here to discuss, review, give our critiques, and just kind of be overly nitpicky to a company because remember, guys, companies are real people. We need to respect all companies, and all companies do no wrong. On a
Reminder that Baby Nut is there.
less,
They actually wanted to have a kid.
I'm
Actually
I'm
wanted to kill.
trying, no matter how hard LaRue is making otherwise. I'm trying to forget Baby Nut's existence in reality, please.
I have threatened LaRue over this.
Of course he would love it. It's the Jack Frost of Nut.
I just hate the name too, Baby Nut.
Baby Nut. Oh no. All right, no more Baby Nut talk, please. So we're going to be going over all of 2019, specifically from the Western Atlus company's point of view, and why. I'm going to try and go through this chronologically to a point. I want to start with games, and then we're going to go with major events, and I'm sure it'll dissipate into talking about the Vita or something or Steelbook somehow. That's usually what happens on the show. So first off, we're going to talk about somehow not the most obscure game, but I think the most surprising game Atlus released in 2019, which is Katherine Classic. So after over 7+ years, and to I think everybody's surprise, I think it leaked maybe like a week or two before, because remember,
Well, it wasn't a leak. There were rumors. Like Sega posted something on the Bayonetta Steam page.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, they had updated the posting on Bayonetta and Vanquish with like sheeps and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really weird, cool marketing that I don't think anyone, because I remember at this point Catherine Full Body wasn't even out in Japan yet, and do you remember everyone was like, holy crap, they're going to bring Catherine Full Body to PC. And instead, a month before Full Body comes out, they drop the OG Catherine on PC.
They're like, no, it's regular Catherine.
I mean, so this is the weird thing. It's really, like, it's cool that they did this. That means that, like, they are interested in testing the waters at making PC ports of their older stuff, which fans have been literally clamoring for since their existence. Like, I was talking about this on the last episode of the podcast with a guest we had on, Adrian, and the last time a SMT game or Persona title was on PC officially was a early 2000s port of Persona 1.
Yeah.
Which did not even come out in the West. Like there was like that weird era where the PS1 games like Soul Hackers and SMT If got PC ports. But going all of that aside, Katherine Classic comes out. It doesn't really add anything new. Its biggest tour de force is obviously it has PC settings, and it was the first version of the game to have multi-dub, so it had the original Japanese or English. I didn't play it personally because I'm not really big into PC, and I was also, like I said, a month away from playing Full Body, so I haven't touched it at all. I know it was pretty favorably received by the fans who did like it on PC. Did either of you two mess around with the PC version?
No, I never did.
Yeah, I was basically kind of in the same headspace. I was waiting for the Western release of Full Body.
I feel like it at least sold well, or at least like as well as a super late, no kind of thrills PC port really can do.
I feel like Atlus games in general would actually do pretty well on PC, even if they are kind of niche. They would do well for themselves, of course.
So this is the tricky part, because I was also, one of the things we talked about last week is the unspoken of exclusivity deals for Atlus games where they never actually say what games are exclusive. So we're going to do a fun little game right now, because we can't really talk about the actual PC port itself. I'm going to let you two pick two modern-ish era Atlus games, and I will tell you if they could be brought to PC or not. John, I will let you go first.
Um,
First Atlus game that comes to mind that you'd be like, this needs a PC port.
Shin Megami Tensei 4.
Damn it, you took mine.
Ooh, okay, that one you can't do, unfortunately.
Oh.
That one has Nintendo's. It's like in the Street Fighter V camp, where like that game is not exclusive because of something that happened with publishing. This is a straight up Nintendo helped pay for some initial funding and exclusivity with it. So that is why that one really can't, with like the weird kind of way of it, because like obviously Nintendo didn't do anything really with the publishing, but they had a huge marketing deal and a huge deal with its release and announcement. Because if you guys remember, that was like the last time an SMT game actually got proper Nintendo treatment at release, outside of look at this crazy game from the Persona people.
Who's ready for SMT5 to for them to be all like, from the makers of Persona?
I'll
Switch Persona.
also say this though. One of the smartest marketing moves they ever did was the eShop get $30 if you buy Awakening and SMT4. Because I know so many people who bought, like, who were fans of one and went to the other, like, and vice versa. That was really, really smart of them. And obviously we see that there was a reason for that deal, but we're not going to really get into that right now. Mac,
real quick before we get too far from it.
Yeah.
I just want to say I have made it like clear that I really hope Nintendo does help push SMT5 whenever that comes around. The same way they've been helping push all the other games that were announced at the Switch presentation. But
that'll be really interesting. Yeah, you're right, because I think after that presentation happened in 2017, the only ones that haven't released are SMT5 and not Travis Strikes Again, but No More Heroes 3.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, No More Heroes 3 technically wasn't announced there, but it basically might as well.
The game that got them the bank loan for No More Heroes 3 was announced there. So by association, I basically throw it in there, because
Nintendo's
I don't know
basically
I don't know anyone who saw Travis Strikes Again and is like, this is my number 3, baby.
Hell yeah. But anyway, what I was going to say is I really I think a smart angle to go at it with is specifically target the Fire Emblem audience. Try and basically do what they did with 4, but like really kind of go harder on that, and the same way they've kind of been tackling the Fire Emblem audience with TMS, but go like a little bit harder on the whole, like, hey, there was the bridge game, now here's the other end.
I really wouldn't be surprised, because while I have never really gotten much experience or hands-on time with any Fire Emblem game, the universal sentiment that I have heard from everybody after Three Houses came out last year is that Three Houses is the most personified game that series has ever had.
Yes. I haven't played too many of those games, but I feel like every single one of my friends loves these games, and all of them have said yes. And even after playing it myself, yes.
So what is your title? And hopefully I will not dash your hopes. What is your PC pick?
Well, Nyarly took SMT4, so I'll say you said recent-ish. So
I'd say the farthest back I'd give you is like 2010 and up.
2010. Okay. I'm gonna say Persona 5 now. I'll say, part of me wants to say Strange Journey, because that would be kind of like the next go, and specifically Redux, because that's in the last decade. But the other part of me is saying Soul Hackers, because Soul Hackers just needs more attention.
So this is really weird. I'll give you two answers. Strange Journey is super, super likely, actually. It'd be really weird because we haven't had a PC port in so long of any SMT games. But no, I think if I was Atlus, my biggest question is they have no real ties to anything. They could definitely publish Strange Journey. The question is, do you publish 4x3 OG Strange Journey, or do you port the 3DS version?
I mean, I think they would port Redux, but even Redux, they'd have to make a lot of changes to make it like not look like crap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would
because
mainly just be
people
a lot
also
of
need
texture
to people
updates.
also need to remember that holy mother of God, 3DS games have just the lowest resolution possible to still be considered a modern system.
The 3D effect, in my opinion, helped make a lot of those games look decent, but then the vast majority of them did not.
So this is
Yeah.
really interesting. I went back because the original release of Soul Hackers, going to your other game, originally Soul Hackers, does anyone remember either the release year in Japan or the original platform?
It was Saturn, and wasn't it
Yes.
like 97?
Perfect. Yeah,
Hey.
I always the funny thing for me before we got the 3DS port that we have, for the longest time when I thought of Soul Hackers, and this is even wrong, so it doesn't make any sense, was the PSP port of Devil Summoner.
Oh yeah.
Just because, like, I always think of Devil Summoner and then I think of Soul Hackers, but then I remember, no, the OG Devil Summoner got a PSP port. That would have been sweet if we got.
Oh my god.
So yes, it came out in 97 on Saturn, 99 in Japan, and never got any other port, which is weird because at that time in the late 90s, Atlus was bringing a lot of their stuff out on PC and other platforms. But yeah, after its 99 release, it took, let's see, came out 2012. So, Jesus, we didn't get that for a really, really long time. But yeah, honestly, either one, I think, could get a PC port. Oddly enough, I think Strange Journey would be the most fan-pleasing, but Soul Hackers seems the most realistic, just because either port like that is using a lot of the same assets, and I think would please a lot more fans in the long run of, like, nostalgia-wise. Because, like, obviously, if you bring Soul Hackers, it has more of a lineage than Strange Journey, even though I think it's safe to say Strange Journey has way bigger of a fan base than Soul Hackers. Soul Hackers is, like, still the niche Blade Runner indie movie in terms of, like, the series' fanfare. Like, if you're a fan of Soul Hackers, you either just like the aesthetic or are trying to be really cool. Like, there's not, like, a huge fan of us that are, like, the big Soul Hackers crowd. I don't know. Am I crazy here? Or would you guys say Strange Journey is less or more popular than Soul Hackers?
I would definitely say
I-
Strange Journey is more popular, just
Yeah, it is
purely by the
definitely
fact that it's
popular.
actually mainline.
I mean, when was the last time you saw anyone talking about Soul Hackers?
You know, the sad answer? Well, actually, I mean, this is not really fair because I see a lot of stuff like this on my group. I saw someone on my group actually post about it. Someone was like, hey, should I start? Like, they were like, hey, should my first SMT game be Soul Hackers? And that was actually a really interesting conversation that we all had in the group of, I think actually as a first title it doesn't work terribly bad as long as you go in with that right mindset of, like, this isn't like a super grueling fuck you, like, over kind of RPG. It's just very systems heavy, and, like, if you can wrap your head around the systems, I think it is a fine game to start with, like the same way how I'd recommend any of the Devil Survivor games to work.
Not to mention, it has the best girl to ever come out of Atlus in Nemissa.
She's like a weird, I don't know, do we classify Nemissa as like a goth girl, or is she like a cyber goth girl?
Cyber goth girl?
I don't know if I'd call them it's a goth.
Because she's got like the white
Regardless,
hair.
she's the best.
Well, oh yeah, and she's like wearing all black.
Biker girl.
So you blew your two
cyber biker
choices,
girl.
but at least your two choices are actually realistic, and I would not have guessed you to pick either of those two. So John, you get one more pick. What is your PC faithful, and hopefully I will not break your heart.
Like I'm trying to, like, there are a bunch of examples I can think of, but they're not like, they're more than 10 years old.
Yeah, we'll try and keep it current, because anything older, I feel like, kind of goes back into the SMT1 ports of, like, okay, yeah.
Oh, actually, I do have one. Dungeon Travelers 2.
Okay, that one I'll give you. I wasn't actually counting overall Atlus games in general. I was kind of more thinking SMT Persona, but I will say this. No, that is actually a good choice. because that developer surprisingly did not bring that to any other systems. Because you mentioned it in your Obscure Atlus Games video, part 2.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting pick because a lot of those Vita exclusive RPGs ended up getting a second chance at life with Steam ports, like the Neptunia games, Senran Kagura, and
Operation Abyss.
Yeah, like a lot of those first person dungeon crawler games got PC ports. So it is surprising that Dungeon Travelers 2 did not get one. Speaking of that video, I'm going to give you a little bit of shit. How did you go that whole time not mentioning the fact that that game has a Japanese only exclusive sequel called, and I shit you not, Dungeon Traveler 2-2?
Oh, yeah.
Like, the only thing more stupid than the fact that we got... Like, the only game we got in that sequel in America was Dungeon Travelers 2, and that its sequel is just called Dungeon Travelers 2-2.
It's like Final Fantasy all over again.
Except they didn't even have the common courtesy to have one Roman numeral and the other one, like, numerical. It's just, like, 2-2.
Why did they call it that? Why not just Dungeon Travelers 3?
I think the whole point behind that was it's like a sequel, but it is also like one of those 1.5 sequels. A good number one that like we actually did get over here in America. One of my favorites of this, and it makes like the least sense possible, is a lot of people don't know this, but you guys know that Samurai Warriors is a spin-off of Dynasty Warriors?
Yes.
Samurai Warriors 4 got a sequel that is actually a full sequel, and instead of calling it like Extreme Legends or whatever like they normally do with the expansions and stuff, the sequel to Samurai Warriors 4 is not Samurai Warriors 5, it is Samurai Warriors 4-2. And it is one of the proudest dumb games I own in my collection.
And we need to get a Samurai Warriors 4-2-0
HD remix, only on the 3DS.
What we need to get, what they should do is they should make a prequel to the sequel to the 2.
That would be too meta. Koei Tecmo's not that funny. They're not that meta with it. Although I will say this in terms of dumb Koei stuff that I learned recently that I need to share with the podcast world. Did you guys know Neo 2 does not take place after Neo 1? You don't play as the guy from Neo 1. You're actually like a Demon Souls create your own character type, and it is a prequel.
I didn't know it was a prequel. I didn't know you didn't play as the guy from the first one.
Oh, I'm sorry. We should have given him William, the very well-known William,
who is like actually a person.
Yes. Yeah, Neo has an insane story. Although
I really want to play Neo. I have it on my PS4.
So, speaking of other weird games that have PC ports I always forget about, that is a PS4 exclusive, published by Sony on the PS4, but published by Koei Tecmo, who developed it on PC. Publishing in Japan is a fucking weird world. So, Speaking of publishing and whatnot, man, I was so not ready for you to bring up Dungeon Travelers 2. I went on a fucking Koei Tecmo rant. So our next release is one we're going to have even less stuff to say about, but I think a lot of people forgot that this even happened. So let me get the exact release date just so I can feel even more bad. So Etrian Odyssey Nexus released in February of 2019 for the Nintendo 3DS. And what's more surprising about that game kind of coming out in America is the fact that I forgot that actually got a boxed release. Like, that is one of those games that I bet is going to be really expensive just on the fact that people kind of forgot it happened, and Etrian Odyssey games already famously sell really, really poorly. Now, me personally, I am not a huge Etrian Odyssey fan in terms of I haven't played a lot. I played the original first 2 on DS, and never really owned them. I just kind of messed around with them, and most of my experience from it oddly comes from Persona Q as well as Etrian Mystery Dungeon. So I don't know, do you guys have much of a history or interest in Etrian Odyssey?
Not really. I think when I was a kid, I emulated a bit of the first one, but I was getting some graphical glitches, so I just stopped. And what the reason I wanted to play it was because one of the characters from Trauma Center, Robert Hoffman, makes a cameo in it.
Also,
I just read it on the
one of the
wiki.
best cameos of at least the last couple of games is that the Gunner class in Etrian Odyssey just straight up has a Jack Frost on them at all times, so I always have to have a Gunner just because Atlus mascot representation.
That's one other game that I really think like I would love to come to PC is fucking anything Trauma Center.
Oh, really? That's a really interesting one in terms of modern-ish ones that would be pretty easy to port over, I bet.
Yeah, I mean it's just pointer controls, but actual mouse controls.
I don't think the Trauma Center games need a PC port. I'd like to see a PC sequel, but if Atlus wants to port them to PC to see how well they do and to see if a PC sequel could work, then I'd be okay with that.
I just want anything Trauma Center. That series is fantastic, and I'm really upset that Atlus just stopped it.
Yes,
one of the rare case in Atlus internally developed games that released more so in the West first before Japan, which is very, very rare.
It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first one, Second Opinion. Well, not the first one. The second one, which is a remake of the first one, that was a Wii launch title, so that kind of makes sense. But then the other two did as well.
Hold on. Because didn't Trauma Center 2 come out before Second Opinion? Because didn't it go Trauma Center 2, and then Second Opinion?
No, it was Under the Knife, then Second Opinion, then New Blood, then Under the Knife 2, and then Trauma Team.
Weird. I don't know why in my head I thought the sequel came out after the first one on DS. But honestly, most people forget that Trauma Center even had a sequel. Because I feel like that series is so tied to the Wii for whatever reason. That was just one of those games that, like... that was one of those weird, like, kind of big DS games because of how niche it kind of was, but sort of faded into obscurity, like, after the generation kind of died down. It's sort of like a Hotel Dusk.
Well, it's because, like, I think it's because, like, with the 7th generation, you had the Wii, which most people bought for motion controls, which was hot at the time, but by the time the Wii U came out, people were just kind of tired of it, which is one of the reasons, like, Kinect failed. It was one of the reasons PlayStation Move failed. And it was one of the reasons a Wii U failed.
I'm a big fake fan, but I'm going to pull this out of my ass as I'm also trying to look it up at the same time. Isn't Meguro the composer of Trauma Center, or am I crazy?
Yeah.
I just had it up.
Shoji Meguro, he is.
Yeah, thank you, Wikipedia and Nyarly.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, awesome games. Even if you actually don't have much interest in playing them, because I know the gameplay is definitely not for everybody. But that's like one of those weird Atlus series that went on for way longer than I think most people even have any right to remember. Because John, what was the last one? New Blood?
No, that was
Trauma Team.
Trauma Team, yeah. Which also, if I recall, has a really stupid generic looking cover. That's just like a cross, right?
Well, it shows the doctors on it.
Why?
I think it depended on... I think it was like some regions had the cross and some had the doctors.
Trauma Team came out... Oh, no. You're right. New Blood has the dumb cover. Trauma Team shows actually all the really good art. I'll say this, though. Trauma Team came out last release of the series 10 years ago this May. May 18th, 2010. Just saying. Would be...
Oh, God, it hurts.
I don't know. That'd be that's like one of those ones I'm not sad has been gone for a decade, but I think like that'd be such an easy like bring back and please a lot of like fans.
Yeah.
John,
I just want it back.
I officially apologize. You are correct. July 2nd, 2008, Trauma Center Under the Knife 2 came out 1 year after Second Opinion. What a weird timeline this series has. My God. Well, going back to Etrian Odyssey, though, Mac, do you have much of a history at all with the map-placing dungeon crawler?
Not really. I did play Etrian Odyssey Untold, the first one. Millennium Girl, I think it was called. I did play.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I played that one, and I did get pretty decently far in it, but at some point I just dropped it. I think that was like just before I started my phase of I'm actually going to beat every game I get because money.
I love that that's a phase, like not like because like on paper responsible normal adults would just do that, but for us like
Yeah.
fucking dumb collectors, like oh man, that's my I had to beat shit phase.
Yeah, and like it's not even something where I'm like forcing myself to do it. It's just literally I have this feeling where I'm just like, I don't want to like just abandon a game when I haven't finished it.
Which is good. That's I mean like you're
Yeah,
spending your money correctly.
I'm getting my money's worth out of shit.
By the way, I did look this up because boy, the internet was really trying to hide it from me. The American box art for Trauma Center New Blood is literally a red cross. It's a kind of blood-looking-ish gradient background,
And Blue
and
Shield?
is really, really, really boring. No, literally just a red cross. But for whatever
Oh.
reason, the Japanese and the European cover are just gorgeous by comparison with like the art showcase they have. It literally looks like just like anime Grey's Anatomy, but compare like literally right next to the American box art. It's like what were they thinking?
They were thinking that Americans are way more boring, I guess.
At least during the Wii era, we definitely were. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah, we never got Disaster Day of Crisis.
not yet.
Oh my God.
We're about to get
Fucking
a disaster game though, and like I think what Disaster Report 4 comes out like in 2 or 3 months.
Oh, well, let's get Disaster Day of Crisis on Switch. We can do it now that Reggie's no longer there.
that plus also Monolith Soft is like like they've shown that they can really do stuff. Like they've really proven themselves in recent years.
I like that you say that as if like like just recently they've been getting good, whereas like Monolith Soft, I feel like they've always been great. They were just doing really obscure shit before. Like it's not like their whole life they were making fucking Project Cross Zones.
Oh my God, I hate Project Cross Zone. I love Monolith, but I hate Project Cross Zone.
That's a
Well,
that's a really bad take that I don't want to explore. I'll just say this though. If Project Cross Zone 3 does happen, we have no excuse not to have Atlus stuff in it because Sega and Atlus are a thing. Technically, we should have had it before with Project Cross Zone 2, but for character crossovers alone, that game series is fucking amazing. So, I'll let you guys pick. Do you guys want to talk about Katherine Fullbody's Japanese release, or leave it to the end because that was the last North American release?
I think we should talk about the Japanese release.
Okay.
Only to make it flow better with the other piece of Catherine news that's not the things we've talked about already.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm guessing I'm the only sad sap who imported it. Correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
So you guys all played the inferior version of Catherine Full Body. How does that make you feel?
like I wasted $60.
Well, as someone who paid over $140 for my PlayStation Vita limited edition of it, I will say this.
Oh yeah, it was on the Vita.
Yes, only in Japan.
Only in
Catherine
Japan.
Full Body on Vita is the actual reason that port exists. Because playing it on a PS4, the new content is pretty cool. The removed classic Atlus songs definitely sucks. And the DLC super, super sucks, but which you can kind of get into. But the fact that I think a lot of people always forget about is that game had a Vita port, and it runs and looks amazingly. Shortly before I got it, I was actually hanging out and playing the PS3 version of Catherine with you, John, if you remember. I'd come over and we were playing it. I hadn't played the PS3 version in forever. I was like, oh, look, you know what? It looks really, really good still. Like held up, had the style. And then going into the PS Vita one, it runs amazingly. This frame rate is super, super solid. You can still check trophies. It's not overclocking the system. Like, something about Atlus's Japan team is they just fucking work that system in ways that other developers can't. Like, when there are developers who are, busting their ass to get Game Maker Studio games running at 60 frames a second, and then you look at how well Persona 4, Persona Dancing, all three of those games, and Catherine Full Body look and run, they kind of honestly put other developers to shame in terms of how good it looks. Especially because of Catherine. It's Catherine is not super gameplay intensive, all the time, but especially in like the later levels of like, especially like Mac, you'll know because you just recently beat it. Like the game, especially with its environments and the traps it throws at you, it like, that last night and specifically like Ren's true route is throwing literally fucking lasers and meteors and asteroids at you, and the screen gets insane at higher difficulties.
Not to mention just how like in general like awesome it looks. Like the theming around the later stuff is really really cool. I liked it a lot, and that alongside all of this stuff being thrown at you is like it's crazy.
So I highly, highly, highly recommend anyone out there who is willing to either jump through the hoops to download the free Vita demo on the Japanese store. It's worth checking out. It's the same as the North American demo, but you obviously don't have to play it. You obviously don't have to pay for it, and you can kind of get the experience of what it looks like. Oddly enough, this is one of those weird cases of when the demo came out like a month before the release in Japan, the demo looked a little bit worse, and actually the sound was super like crunchy, because like they were clearly trying to keep it like as small of a download as possible. And like other Vita releases have had that problem. Who here played Danganronpa V3 on Vita?
Not me.
Me.
Where did you guys play it? PC or PS4?
PC Master Race.
Ew, visual novel.
PS4.
Not on a handheld. I don't know how you guys do it. So
I don't have a Vita, and I already had the rest of the series on PS4, so that's why.
okay.
Well, most of the visual novels I played have been on PC, so.
I understand. We all have our homes, but
Does Danganronpa even count as a visual novel?
hell yes. Does it come with yes? 100%.
Danganronpa is a very different visual novel.
It has gameplay.
I mean, listen, I never ended up doing this video like I planned on. I hope to one day still soon, but like let's be real, I count Persona 3 Portable as a visual novel, and that has hours of gameplay.
I mean, whenever someone asks me whether or not I think Danganronpa is a visual novel, I just say, like, we'll put it this way. It has more gameplay than The Last of Us.
The best case of action... The best case of action for Danganronpa, and action was not intended to be a pun, the fact that those trials, if you put them on autoplay like I do, you're basically just watching a show. Like, the trials are shows with mini games every now and then. And that's not like a detriment of the game. Like, the trials are the best part of Danganronpa. And the fact that they're all voiced just, like, goes to show, like, they knew that those were the best parts of those games.
The Nonary collection, the Zero Escape games, those have autoplay and they're fully voiced.
Man.
That is literally just watching.
Mac, we have not talked about... I've not actually talked to you about this before. Quick little TLDR, I tried to get into the Zero Escape trilogy so hard. I bought Virtue's Last Reward. Actually, no. Originally, I got it. This was back when PlayStation Plus was good. They actually gave out a couple of months after it first came out. Because if you guys remember, Virtue. No, not Virtue's Last Reward. No, yeah, that was the sequel.
Nonary collection.
No. Going back to number 2, Virtue's Last Reward came out originally on Vita and 3DS. Didn't do super well, hence why.
Series was basically put on hold for a little bit.
Exactly. So that one sold pretty meh, and we got the second game as like a PlayStation Plus game really early on, and that was one of the first like, holy shit, this is like, because getting a visual novel as a PlayStation Plus game is really rare, especially even back then. That's how I got the first game. Finally bought it physically when the third game finally came out, because I was wanting to support it and I was collecting for Vita at the time. And the only way to play 999 was, at least at the release of, what was it, Zero Time Dilemma? Is that the third one,
Yes.
right? So the only way to play that was the DS or the iOS release.
Oh my god, the iOS
I
version.
bought the iOS
Literally.
release. Well, I bought the iOS release because I hated the idea of playing a visual novel on a DS, like, which I already don't like. I don't carry around a DS like unless I really, really, really like the game, and I knew I did not like, that was not a platform I wanted to experience visual novels on. there are so many problems about that I will not get into, but the biggest thing that I could not hold up for it was that it was all text. There was no voice acting anywhere at all. And it was just so slow for me, and I was like, man, I know I would love this fucking series. And then when the Nonary games came out, where it was the second game and the first game with a ton of improvements, looks better, and is fully voiced, I blew through that in like a month, like the first game, and I cannot recommend that enough. Like, if people like want to fucking check it out, like, that collection is so great, and 999 specifically, because it's a really great start to the series. I think I'm like somewhere in the middle of 2. But holy crap, yeah, just the, like, how much it helped by adding autoplay and voicing everything made 999 at least 3 times better.
The only thing, and like I agree fully, but the one thing that keeps me from saying outright that the Nonary collection is the definitive way to play 999 is a certain factor in the story that was made specifically because it was on the DS.
Which puzzle is that? Because I know which one you're talking about, but my brain can't pull it out. Because I remember that was a big deal when the iOS port came out, because it lost a lot of its specialty with the puzzles were taken out.
It's well, specifically it's just kind of like in general, but like the final puzzles especially, but then just also like the game does a lot of really cool stuff, and I don't think it works. I think not a matter of it doesn't work, it's a matter of you kind of lose that aspect if you're not playing on a DS, and that's just the one thing that's just like
give me
a
bit of a you can,
blown.
I mean, if the game's been out for a while, you can kind of like spoil it in a little bit of the sense of like, what am I losing? Because remember, I didn't even touch the game on DS, so for a first time experiencer, like, the game was basically perfect for me on Vita. So like, what was the big difference that you would say that made the DS one a little more special?
I'll say this, the adventure mode and the novel mode are an attempt to, where you can swap back and forth between, you get full-blown descriptions of everything that's happening, like a novel, or just dialogue. That is an attempt to emulate this, but I don't think it does it as well, because it does it enough. It does what it needs to do, but I think it's just, you can't, just don't think it's possible to replicate this. It's difficult because it is kind of something that's just like a major story spoiler.
Okay. I'm gonna
and partly
write down something so that after the show is done, you can either message it to me or tell me, because now I'm very, very curious, because I did not know about this at all. I knew about the puzzles and stuff. But you were gonna break my heart, weren't you? You were gonna tell me the next question I was gonna ask Nyarly. John, have you not played any of the Zero Escape games?
That was the other reason.
Nope.
John, you like Danganronpa, right?
Yeah.
Are you aware that these are from the same company?
Yeah, I actually have the Nonary games on Vita, but like I got stuck on the first puzzle and I just haven't gotten back into it yet.
Don't feel bad, because those games do not fuck around when it comes to their puzzles. So that is like an actual thing of like when I think that's actually why I still haven't beaten Virtue's Last Reward, is like, oh geez, especially in VLR. Like, some of the puzzles are obtuse as hell, and I am way too stubborn to look anything up.
Yeah.
Like, what are you at math?
Like, I don't like looking at a guide when I play games, because that just kind of kills the immersion.
Well, and especially with like adventure games like that, where it is like you are just ruining the game. Like, at that point, you're one step away from just like watching someone play it. I would say if you ever get into a slow timer, especially like because you're going to be on a plane like shortly, give it a chance again, like when you're like on your trip. I think if you give yourself like another, like, because the game is really good at summarizing everything that's kind of happened, even like months and months and months. I don't know however long it's been, but yeah, there's nothing outside of the puzzles kind of being a actual roadblock for continuing the story. Like, there is nothing in those games that I think would deter you from liking them.
Well, actually,
specifically for 999, bring a notepad.
Yes,
because
having
it does
actual
not have that feature.
Well, I'm trying to think. What did I use on Vita? Because I know
the later games add a notepad.
Yeah, I know that they have them in the later games. Oh no, because the Vita does have like there is like a note feature basically on the Vita. Like, you can open it in like a separate app and like write on stuff. So that's what I used. I was trying to remember. Man, that is like crazy for it. So wait, Mac, before we go back to talking about Catherine, which, God, what a great tangent this has been.
I know.
Explain to me where you played them all, because now I'm curious. So, DS, so what about VLR and Zero Time Dilemma?
So, 3DS. Actually, I played them all.
Ew, dude, those games look so gross on 3DS. How did you play that?
I am aware, trust me.
Oh!
You see, the way I did it is I did not have a Vita.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Virtue's Last Reward actually has a really crazy eat your fucking game save bug on the 3DS version, right?
Yep. It was never fixed.
Wow.
Yep.
If you guys ever want to look up visually horrifying graphical comparisons, like nowadays graphics are pretty much like if a game gets a PS4 port and a Switch port, it kind of looks a little potato-y. Specifically look at the Vita version of Virtue's Last Reward or Zero Time Dilemma and on the 3DS. Zero Time Dilemma like looks chunky, but I think it's because like of the use of like darker colors. I think it looked less visually insultive, but like, man, Virtue's Last Reward, I remember seeing that on 3DS and being like, this is insulting to my eye sockets.
And I love that game. That's my favorite of the series.
Man. I love this though. I would never have pegged you as a nonary games man, but this is a fantastic discovery. So,
dude, my 2 longest videos I've done yet are 2 50-minute long videos talking about the Somnium Files, which is the game the Zeroscape guy made after Zeroscape.
This fucking podcast cannot not bring up that game. Every podcast since we did episode 150 has brought that up at least once.
The Somnium Files?
Yes, every guest unprompted by me has brought up AI the Somnium Files, and it's really funny.
It's a good game.
That is so insane. So going back though to Catherine, because I do want to blow it a little bit longer for the Vita version. The actual physical cart is really expensive still because this is the last game Atlus will ever do on Vita, and I think it retailed originally for like $90, and it still hovers around I think 70, 80, if not has already gone back up to 90 or more, just for like the standard Vita cart.
Wait, I got a physical release. I thought it was digital only.
No, physical. That is why I was so adamant on getting that collector's edition, because I wanted the physical, and actually the Japanese collector's edition was really, really nice, where we got the art book similar to the American collector's edition, but it had a 3-disc soundtrack. The first disc was the original Catherine's full soundtrack. The second disc was the new songs and arrangements from Full Body. And the third disc is like a interview, like kind of commentary disc. So basically it was worth it just for buying to get the game physically on Vita and to have every single song, because some of the new tracks in Full Body are really, really nice arrangements.
Oh my god, there's this one song on the final night for Ren that is amazing.
Yeah, like the final level is almost worth it for the price of admission. It just sucks that you have to go out of your way to get like that route, and it's super not easy.
Oh no.
But yeah,
I screwed up the first time. I had to start over.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, when I played it in Japanese, and this was at release, so guides weren't around, so I was trying for Ren's route. And if you're trying for Ren's route, it doesn't matter unless you specifically pick the options that make your gauge break. So for me, I wasn't able to get the gauge to break, and that means your Ren route turns into a sad, lonely Vincent on the... Because basically, Ren's story ends at that phone call. There's a moment where Ren calls you at the bar, and if you don't specifically get to a certain point in her gauge, she is out of the story, and you just get the worst Vincent alone ending, and it really sucks. So that was my first ending in Full Body, and I was like, this blows. That aside, does anyone here, would you all like to ask me any Vita specific questions before we go into the actual Catherine Full Body?
Not really.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I mean, I would say why we didn't get it in English, but I think it's...
You know what? No, that is actually a really great point, because we haven't brought that up. Yes, this did not get a Western release even digitally like Persona 3 and 5 Dancing did. So Atlus has actually never commented on it. They never publicly addressed it. They basically swept it under the rug. So you guys remember Katherine Full Body got announced in 2017, the very end of 2017.
Oh yeah, it did.
And I think the following year it got announced in I think early January 2018. Atlus USA had said it was coming to Vita and PS4. So they never really said anything. My Vita expertise basically kind of tells me Persona 3 and 5 sold like total fucking dog shit already on every platform, but it probably sold the worst on the Western versions on Vita because it was digital only and they had no excuse. So because I know people really like that game and I really like that game, but that game's biggest problem was everyone wanted to play it on Vita. People didn't want to pay the full price for the download, let alone twice. Because the only thing people hate having to do more is to buy something could be made physically for $80 to get the full experience, not even getting into DLC. So that had a lot of shit really going against it. So I'm sure once that game totally tanked in Western sales, they were like, okay, well, we'll just do it on PS4. And it really sucks because, not to kind of blow smoke up my own ass, if I didn't tell you guys the Vita port came out, do you think it would have really dawned on you that port existed?
I actually forgot that even released on the Vita and even came out here.
John?
Yeah, I almost forgot.
John, the next time you do an obscure Atlus games people don't talk about, I want you to throw in Katherine Full Body being on Vita and see if anyone calls you out for it not being obscure in reality.
You should make it a joke and act as if it's a game no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, there's this little indie title called Katherine Fullbody. Fullbody on the PlayStation Vita. Some platform. I think it was the Virtual Boy sequel. Yeah, so awesome port, but I guess since you just beat it, I'll kind of pick your brain for it. So Katherine Full Body came out in September in the West on PlayStation 4 only. What was your kind of takeaway from it, Mac, whether it be at release or now that you've kind of beaten it, in terms of, hey, this is an Atlus game? How do you feel about it?
I think it falls in line with a lot of Atlus enhanced re-releases where gameplay-wise it makes a ton of changes that are it just makes the game better. There's so many things that so many quality of life, but also just so many little things here and there that just make the game so much better to play. The biggest thing being the fact that when you are climbing on the back of blocks, the camera actually moves.
If you didn't bring up the fact that the camera followed you behind, I would have actually had to just scream it out. Because when I discovered that when playing the demo back in January, I was like, because I didn't think about that. That's not a feature you think of Katherine as oh, the camera was a little weird when you would go behind it. But as soon as that happens, the PS3 version can die in a dumpster fire, let alone also the PC version. Just that little quality of life change makes such a difference.
Oh man, it's so good. But outside of that, a lot of the changes are basically all of the gameplay mechanics across the board are pretty great. But then when it comes to more of the story stuff, that's where things get a little bit more contentious, just in terms of I mean, you heard my reaction towards the beginning of the podcast where what the fuck?
I mean, I've said this a few times on the show. I don't know if you agree with me. I think Ren's ending is great. I think if Ren's ending did not, to try and not spoil it, if Ren's ending stopped right short of the very last reveal, I would have actually been okay with what Ren ended up being truly revealed as. But I think that little extra nudge at the end just turned the biggest comparison I've always said to it is it made a really interesting and introspective angle for a new relationship and basically turned it into the Silent Hill dog ending. Of so it's a joke.
It really is just the dog ending. It's ridiculous. What I'll say is up to that point, I wasn't loving it. Like really, kind of up to that point, my problem, I was fine with it. The only problems really were just there were certain like it was more of like little aspects of it that I was not enjoying or I felt like clashed with the original intent or like the original story.
You know what? I actually would like to
Game.
pick your brain at this more, and like John, feel free to interject with it because I was following you kind of playing around with it and stuff in the sense of you like and please step in if I'm like kind of speaking over like what however you sort of felt like it was. You thought Ren's placement was a little bit weird or like kind of felt like kind of weirdly interjected into the like overall gameplay.
Yeah, I felt like just kind of in general, Rin really sticks out, and I totally get like that's the point. But I'm very much thinking I'm just kind of like take everything into its in. I'm trying to think of it in the context of the entire game, especially the original game. Um, and it's very much I just feel like a lot of the new stuff just kind of sticks out and doesn't mesh as well. Like you can easily what I'm kind of getting at is that you can easily tell what is new story and what is old.
Well, it's tough because like I don't even think it's fair to say that Rin is supposed to feel out of place because like in terms of the story they make hey there's now a giant piano during every rest area and there is a lore reason as to why Rin is playing the piano. I think the problem with that is that until you get to that turning point where there's a third of the story left, that first 2/3 of the game, you might as well just be playing the original story from PlayStation 3 or 360. Like, the story does not change at all, give or take one or two cutscenes.
Yeah, there's not a great amount of new content. I would say maybe, like, at best, 20%.
Well, it's weird
new.
because, like, if you're not going for Rin, yes, there are new endings for, like, basically Vincent by himself, Catherine with a C, or Catherine with a K, but then you get into a weird thing of like, okay, the new endings are interesting takes. I know some people love them. I know some people are like not crazy. I personally think like the one of the Catherine with the K endings of like her like who she ends up with at the end is kind of a weird one. Especially actually no, let me go back. There is some weird time travel-y stuff they do with C Catherine's endings that are very out there.
Yeah.
Nothing that I think ruins it, but also a big thing with it that kind of is really odd for a game that came out in 2011 to then have this issue with its re-release is that the newly animated cutscenes, they're all still done by Studio 4C, but wow, you can tell the budget was not there. Like tonally, when you're looking at like, because like the biggest comparison I do is look at any of the new cutscenes, and then look at
Catherine's face.
Well,
See
not
her
even like
face.
some of the facial stuff of like just like in terms of the fluidity, the best I think animated cutscene in that whole game of the original release is the opening bar shot of following Erica around as they kind of goes through the bar and like 2D 3D pseudo shot of when it's going through the stray sheep. I think everything looks really crisp, really clean, which is really hard to do for animation when it's mixing 3D models and 2D elements and having it not look super janky. And there is literally one cutscene in full body I think looks good, and everything else looks really really rough. Like, did any of the new cutscenes stand out positively to either one of you two? Like, not in terms of their quality of like the story, like specifically just how it looks as a piece of animation.
I feel like some of the later 2D animated Rin cutscenes look pretty decent.
Boom.
I think they look pretty good.
The first one that comes to mind is the chainsaw cut, like Catherine with the C, like with the at the end of Ren's story, basically where like the Nightmare Catherine start fighting each other. Like that piece of like animation where like Vincent is basically like trying to escape like the world's most deadly cat fight. That piece of animation looks really really good and like awesome great like shots of like with the blood and how they really like it feels scary while at the same time still feeling like that kind of same tone that Catherine keeps. And then the rest of it, I think, because outside of the endings, most of the new cutscenes you're going to see if you're just normally playing through the game are the flashback cutscenes that just feel like, okay.
Oh my god, those were so incredibly tacked on.
Well, it sucks because they're tacked on. Their purpose is there. Because, like, if you guys remember, the whole point of why they're there is one of the biggest complaints of the original Catherine release is Catherine with a K is one of the least popular choices in the whole game because the game basically kind of shows nothing but negative aspects of her. So the game is trying to show you that, hey, there was a relationship here, which is it's a decent effort at trying to do, but it's basically just showing you in their honeymoon phases and not really showing you aspects of them as a couple.
Now.
Well, no, not even that. Like, outside of, like, hey, we hooked up, hey, we were friends in high school, stuff like that, there were very few moments outside of, hey, I have a crush on Catherine, and not, here is why Vincent fell in love with Catherine. You see when it happens, but you don't see why it happens.
Yeah.
John, what do you have any takeaways from the cutscene?
Not really, but, I mean, based on what you guys were saying about K. Catherine, like, is it true that she's actually one of the least popular characters in the game?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Because usually whenever I say that I prefer C. Catherine, I get bombarded with a bunch of people being like, saying I have garbage taste or whatever.
The thing with Catherine choices is saying you like C. Catherine is the popular choice. The most vocal people out there are usually the minority. So you saying I like Coke makes you a basic bitch for liking Coke. It doesn't change the fact that Coke is still really popular and people like a lot of aspects of Coke, but those people out there who are diehard Pepsi K. Catherine fans are just going to try and make you feel worse for liking the most popular option. I would be curious, though, because they never really released the stats and it's a little hard to tell in-game. I would be very curious. Man, it really sucks. I wish we could have gone back in time.
I wish they had added a Telltale style, like, hey, you beat the game, here are the stats for of like the choices.
They have that in different aspects of the game when you're playing. The problem is, if you've played Catherine before, which, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, Catherine was one of Atlus's like biggest selling games, especially with the Western release selling over 100,000. Like, if all three choices, like love interest choices, were in there from the get-go, I really wonder who would be the least popular. Because obviously Rin is the most popular because she is where all the new content is. So it's not really fair to like say, well, she's the most popular, so that's like she must be the best girl or whatever. Whereas like I wish we could kind of go back in time, and I really think if like the story doesn't change, the OG release had K. Catherine, C. Catherine, Catherine. Like, who do we think would be the most and least popular, and why? Because I actually think Rin would probably be the least popular, while then later on to be like the most contentious, whereas like Catherine would then kind of be in the middle, like K. Catherine. What do you guys think?
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like Rin is just kind of, compared to C. Catherine and K. Catherine, she's just the most boring of the three, because she just feels kind of like your standard pure Japanese girl.
Wow, really?
I don't think she's interesting. I think she's kind of a Mary Sue.
No way. Not at all.
I think she's a Mary Sue.
Her own, like, literally her most generic fact about her is that she has half made up amnesia. Besides that, though, I think Rin is actually,
I think she's really generic.
I don't know if I would say she's my favorite, but I think she's definitely the most interesting like love interest choice for most of her journey. John, I don't know, what about you then? What do you think of Ren?
I mean, I don't really. She's not really my type.
So what you guys are saying is that you are all a bunch of cis white male gamers who can't hang out with a couple of extra inches of sausage on Rin. That's why you guys don't like her, huh?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
All jokes aside,
I mean,
I do like to at least give Catherine and this will kind of go into another little bit of a thing for it. I am amazed at how tactfully Atlus Japan handled Rin's side of the story, and this is so not a spoiler, because there are other things for it. But hey, guess what? In case you do care, skip ahead like 18 seconds or whatever. Rin is not a girl. Rin is a boy, and Rin's like basically, Rin physically is a boy. Doesn't care what you call him. You can call Rin a boy or a girl. Doesn't really matter, especially at the end of the day. The thing about that though is they did the super tropey thing of, hey, Rin is a boy. Thank God they did not go into, like, I know where this came from, but I thought before the controversy thing happened, in your guys' circles at all, I'd be very curious to know what you think. Was there ever people who thought Rin might be, like, trans? Because, like, for me, as soon as she got revealed in that trailer, I was like, oh, Rin is probably a crossdresser. Like, my first thing was, like, Rin is probably just a boy dressing up as a girl. I never thought, oh, Rin is trans.
I personally thought Rin was trans at first, just based off of the hints in the trailers. But I was not like full blown.
I'm sorry.
Like,
are you saying Vincent waking up face in dick is a hint?
Yes, that is a hint.
That is a pretty big hint.
That is a hint.
By the way, we gotta assume right now, Rin has just got to be packing, right? I would like the only thing that'd be more funny is like if Rin just packing just the most unproportionally sized penis of all time. Because why else would Vincent be that shocked? Like, his normal shocked kind of makes sense. But, like, that's his most shocked look in the game is when he finds out, like, Rin's true identity.
Finds out it's bigger than his.
That's the best. Like, imagine if his whole internal struggle of, like, Rin, I'm sorry I freaked out and I pushed you away. It wasn't because I found out that you were actually a man. I was too ashamed to admit that yours is bigger than mine.
Oh man, the whole theme of Rin's route is like accepting yourself regardless of like of what others say or think, and that there 100% fits that theme.
Alright, so actually though, kind of going back to it, like, jokes aside, outside of the fact that they do the whole thing of, hey, boy discovers girl he likes is not a girl, pushes away in disgust, he very quickly realizes that was a problem, and I'm so, like, imagine how terrible Ren's route would be if that's where it ended, and the best resolution you get is that it is you having to learn over the next 4 to 5 nights that Vincent shouldn't, like, think that way. When, like, he immediately, after having, like, going back to the bar, he has a conversation with Erica about, like, how Erica knew the whole time. I love that he immediately has a conversation with Erica and everyone else at the bar, and there's that really good talk of, like, you know what? No, that doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't bother me, and that the rest of the story isn't about him learning that it's okay to love someone no matter what their gender is. It's about finding that person who makes you feel, like, special and loved. Like, because literally nothing would be, like, not even if it would be in poor taste or not, I would hate that story. If you had to spend, like, the last half of that game convincing yourself that dating a boy is okay, would just be the most cringe. I don't think I could do it.
It would be overkill. It would be overkill. Like, doing it a little bit is fine. If doing it for a single night, I think it'd be fine.
Because they, like, the Atlus team is not subtle. Like, they have not handled characters like with even light homoerotic tones very tastefully. Like, this for their, like, studio is basically the most progressive thing they could do outside of, like, on Gay Rights Month or whatever, like, do the, like, Rainbow Atlas logo, which to my knowledge I don't think has actually happened.
Yeah.
That was a lot of me assuming. But please actually go into it, because I've not heard anyone complain about Rin in the Mary Sue department. So what about her makes you think this?
It's the fact that Rin has absolutely no flaws, the way they talk about her, everyone is just immediately loves her. The only character that doesn't like her is the bad guy. And, like, everything just feels very, like, it just feels like it exists to, for lack of a better term, give her, just give her a little hand job, just, whack her off and that kind of thing. It feels like on her and she does no wrong and that she's just kind of perfect in every way.
It's really tough because the cast is so small in that game that she doesn't really interact with enough people. The only kind of sense that I see where you're coming from for me in that sense is like I don't like that she blows up. It is really popular. I think it'd be a really cool concept if like her kind of like mythicalness of like the piano who will like grant your wish or gives you good luck. I think that would have
That
been
I thought that was ridiculous because that happens after like a single day.
Yeah, well, it's stupid on top of the fact that, like, I wish there was a little bit of, like, give and take. Because the most we ever get that shows that in a negative light is, like, the one drunk guy who literally nothing bad comes from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand that being a little bit heavy-fisted and kind of hammy. But I don't know. I think it's just so weird because I feel like you could honestly say the same thing about Kay Katherine. Like, what are Kay Katherine's flaws? Everyone has nothing but great things to say about her.
She's whiny.
Yes,
she's
but
whiny,
yes, but
manipulative,
the only people who complain
bitchy,
about her
she's
is a guy dating her. And then, depending on your choices, you can go back on that and say, oh, you know what, I actually needed this kick in the butt. Because while you can easily say Kay Katherine is like a whiny, naggy girlfriend, like sometimes, guess what? Vincent is a bit of a loser. It's kind of like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
The older you get, you realize, hey, he's kind of being a fucking like Vincent is an over 30 schlub with like no real ambitions in his life. He needs a girl like that to kick him into gear.
The thing, essentially, I wouldn't be as like negative on Rin and like feeling that, feeling the way I do about her, if not for the fact that it feels like everyone else in the cast feels like a real person, and Rin just doesn't to me. She feels like an anime character, and everyone else actually feels like a grounded person to me with flaws.
It's tough because she definitely does feel the most forced into the story just because, hey, guess what, she is.
Yeah, literally.
the only characters that I think feel natural really in... Like, the only characters that feel, like, really natural in that whole sense is the new characters they added who you climb with and who you can run into at the end of the game. Like, the ones that, like, stand out to...
Roderick.
The chef, right?
Yeah, yes.
And I think there's at least one more. I think, like, isn't the... No, because the chef was a singer before. Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, like, I think those, like, I think all of those new story elements are handled really well and feel very smooth, because when I was playing them, I like, somehow the giant, fat, like, rich oil baron actually didn't stick out to me as, like, a, hey, this is new.
Weirdly, no. Honestly, yeah, like, what I will say, the thing that stuck out about me about Abul is it wasn't so much his story specifically as it is... My understanding is that the nightmares happen specifically to men that are having, like, problems with women. They have bad relationships with women, or any kind of, like, issues like that, or any kind of, like, relationship issues in specific. Abul doesn't talk at all about relationships with women. It's just, oh, I'm kind of greedy, and that's about it. And that I just didn't get.
Well, remember, though, the whole point of why the men get brought in isn't always for infidelity. At the end of the day, its original reasoning for getting these men in the situation was because they have no ambition of reproducing, which at the end of the day was the actual thing, which obviously for him you could kind of then assume because of his wealth he wasn't really ever going to be focused and settle down and be happy and make a family.
Yeah, it's just... I don't know. I feel like maybe I think that's something that I just need to, like, really kind of go more in, like, do a little bit more research and just kind of, like, really get my feelings together on it. Yeah. Look more into the specifics about what was said with the nightmares.
Do you think that Katherine is, like, commentary on Japan's declining birth rate?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's not even like subtle commentary. It's literally like, hey, and I mean, at least for the past couple of years, like, it has just been getting worse and worse. Like, they have very, very, like, low. God, not even just Japan anymore. Like, it's kind of funny when Katherine came out, it was more of a kind of like Asian related problem, but even now, yeah, like, the Western culture has even been having declining, like, birth rates.
What's ironic is the fact that these characters and the game takes place in America.
Actually, no, not true. One of the weird things I found out when I was doing research for our spoiler cast last year is that it's never explicitly said where the game takes place, but Full Body actually incorporates new elements in some of the stuff in the art books. Not like the collector's edition ones, like the real like artworks. Is that actually Catherine's world takes place in a space colony, and this is like a near future, but is still very much like our own Earth. So it's like, think like space colonies like Gundam, where it basically looks like Earth, but it is not on the planet Earth.
Wow,
and then
Rin's
we broke
ending.
Um,
Ending is stupid.
Yes. Any final kind of like words, whether it be positive or negative, or just things that kind of stick out to you when talking about Full Body, John?
It shouldn't have been $60. I mean, I've already said that, but and why did we have to wait 7 months for the translation? Like, when it's a re-release of a game that's already translated, that we only had to wait, like, how long did original Catherine take? Like 2 or 3 months?
No. The original Catherine actually took a while. I'll have to look that up. The original Catherine, there was a worry for a while we might not even get it in reality. While I looked that up, though, I am actually curious about something. Mac, I don't know if you or even John will have much of a kind of thought about this. Do you think Full Body will be remembered as well in the future as the original Catherine, or will it kind of just go back to the original Catherine as the one everyone talks about?
Yeah.
I think people are gonna more talk about the original Catherine. They'll probably recommend Full Body over the original, but they're gonna talk more in the context.
Like, they're not going to talk specifically about Full Body. They're just going to be like, oh yeah, Catherine, it's like my favorite game from the 2010s, but the version you should play is Full Body because it has more content.
You know, it really sucks. I was listening to Sacred Symbols, Colin Moriarty's PlayStation podcast. No, actually,
he's banned on Reset Era.
Speaking of our next part,
hey,
he's not banned from Reset Era.
I'm not, but that's because I was never a member.
Same.
One of his shows, actually, I think it was one he was doing. Either way, it doesn't matter. He was talking about the game, though, as like one of his like top 100 games of all time. And it really like goes to show, like, as big of like a PlayStation fan and as big of a fan of Catherine as he is, in his head, Catherine Full Body was just the port of Catherine. Like, people don't really even, like, though Rin is on the cover and was very heavily marketed, especially in Japan, less so in America, people just don't really associate Full Body as like being a big new expansion, even though you can kind of argue that the story parts of it are kind of light for a game that took this many years. It is kind of weird in terms of like it has an odd feeling of it has a lot of TLC put into it, but you can also kind of tell that it was rushed, but not in like the quality of the game, just in certain aspects of the production behind the game.
Yeah.
Mac, final Catherine thoughts on Full Body? Or a final word?
It's definitely the better version to play. I think the original story is way better than the new stuff, but it's still the better version to play.
Yeah.
I want to say,
if you have a PS4, there's no reason not to play it. True. Unless you're an Xbox fanboy, because you can't. Well, actually, you can.
You can play Katherine Classic.
You can play the original Catherine on Xbox One. So, but yeah.
You know what? I wonder how Catherine looks if they ended up doing much of the 4K enhanced stuff, because I know a lot of those backwards compatible games still look crazy good if you have an Xbox One X. Very unrelated though, but going back to Full Bodied, my little thing I would like to say, good on them for making Babel instantly playable and fun, as well as having online multiplayer and regular multiplayer good to play out of the box, as opposed to originally had to beat the game. Bad on them for having a ton of DLC day one for a 8+ year old game. That will never not leave a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Speaking of leaving bad taste in people's mouths, who here remembers the Katherine controversy back in February?
I do.
I do.
So does anyone here kind of want to take the reins of like what do they remember about either when it started or where it kind of ended off at? Because I feel like it started with this huge bang of like basically we were trying to Me Too Atlus before the release of Full Body even came out in Japan, and then we eventually just tried sweeping it all under the rug.
Yeah.
I mean, like, do you guys have any like personal kind of like, were you guys very active when those talks were happening, or like, what is your personal kind of involvement if you have any at all?
Well, what happened with me was I remember like the night that it came out in Japan, it was I didn't get back to my dorm until like 2 in the morning because I was playing Super Smash Brothers all night. And then I checked my Facebook and I saw that somebody I knew from SMT Network said like "fuck you, Atlus." I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to sleep. And then I woke up to like everyone like a hate mob against Atlus. Like it was like a tornado tore through my town, and I just slept over it. I just slept through it. But I saw, like, I looked at this, I tried to figure out what the source of it was, and then I was taken to that Reset era thread, and I'm like,
Ooh.
okay, where is the, okay, so what are people angry about? And then I found out that was what people were angry about, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Really?
So before we kind of get into like Mac and myself, are like kind of sides with it. This started let's see, so about a day or two before the February 14th release, or like the day after or of, because I remember this actually kind of rumbling started. Wasn't exactly Reset Era, but I remember a day or two before the release on Twitter, some people were talking about this. But this specific Reset Era thread has the original quote, and this is major, not real spoilers. Redacted name said, Katherine Full Body looks like such a damn train wreck. There are leaks about the new ending in which Katherine with a C goes back in time just to give the protagonist and everybody a better life. And for some reason, that meant making the trans character, in this situation we're talking about Erica, never transition. Atlus. Quote number 2, I'm sad, really just want to play Katherine since high school, even if it was already garbage. Maybe I crush on the Katherines while I was a teen and kind of wanted to honor that, but and then shows a picture of high school Eric and Erica from the main game of it. So basically, when the Japanese release happened, Westerners were seeing footage of one of the endings where C. Katherine goes back and changes high school Vincent's life, basically interjecting herself into it. And so a lot of stuff got lost in translation, where people who do not speak native Japanese were getting upset at this Japanese-only game and using specific words, thanks to Google Translate and hearsay on Twitter and forums online, to make this big deal that basically the game is super transphobic and its best possible ending ever, no other thing equates to it, only happens if Erica does not transition and stays a man named Eric in high school. Which is really funny because I remember when all of this was going on myself, the big worry was, man, they're going to fuck up Ren. Ren's going to be a guy, or Ren's going to be trans or something, and it's going to be this huge fucking stupid deal where everyone's going to get all up in their arms of, why is Ren trans, or they handled Ren being trans really poorly, blah, 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 blah. When at the end of the day, like, I looked this up, and I remember being so flabbergasted at the time of, like, I didn't even spoil it for myself. Like, I spoiled it for myself in the sense of I saw one of the endings where Eric is still a thing. But it was just so funny to me because there were so many people who were just so blind to, like, aspects of, hey, guess what? There's no one ending in Katherine. Katherine has dozens of endings, and on top of that, this is one specific ending and is the quote for these people best ending. I think the actual terminology with Atlus or in the game is they describe this as like the true ending, right? Because they don't really do good or bad endings. They kind of say the true ending for their new stuff. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
So
they tend to have like, this is the bad ending, this is the good ending, this is the true ending.
yes, yeah, exactly. There's not like here is the best, true, good, everyone's living their best life #blessed ending. So just because Erica hadn't transitioned and was still Eric, I thought it was so funny that people were blowing this out of proportion, basically calling for this game to be canceled, and good on like
calling for Atlus to be burned.
yeah,
I heard a
which
few people say.
It just sucks because this whole thing was in everyone's face, like, what the fuck, and it really sucked because as a company, Atlus never really commented on it. A, because if you play the game, you realize they didn't have to. It speaks for itself. The problem, though, is it's such a late game thing, and a lot of people were acting like this is the be-all, end-all truth, where honestly, there was more people talking about Katherine Full Body when this controversy happened, as opposed to when the game released in America, which is not good. Like that is when that game's most vocal moment happened, and it wasn't even for their own Western release. This was the Western argument for a Japanese-only release at the time. So the stupid part about this is once this kind of happened in true internet or in true cancel culture fashion, it happened. There was never a resolute ending, or nothing really happened. Some of the voice actors I know, specifically Ren's voice actor and Aaron Fitzgerald went out there, the voice actor of Eric and Erica. They came out there and said, hey, wait for the game. It's going to be okay. Just, like, trust us. Like, just wait. You can be mad if you want. We're not telling you to not be mad. They were basically just saying, just wait for the game to come out in English and then judge it. Like, that's all you had to really do. And then, as you can kind of tell, by the time the Western release came out, the game didn't get lambasted in reviews. They weren't saying, holy crap, look at how horribly transphobic and offensive this is. The game still reviewed quite well. No controversy happened at the Western release. And what has always pissed me off the most is there was never an apology. All of these people would rather forget that they started this controversy to begin with and then just go and say, hey, I got confused, I'm sorry.
Well, that's how outrage culture works. People will, like, they'll try to burn a company or a person or whatever, and then if they find out they were in the wrong, they'll just act like they never had anything to do with it.
Yep.
Mac, I have been talking for too much and need to get a drink, and John gave me a bit of talk. What is kind of your history and opinion on the whole cancel Katherine gate?
Cancel Katherine gate. That's the best combination of all the words to describe it.
Hashtag me too, Katherine Cancelgate.
Katherine has been hashtag canceled. Anyway, what I don't know why, but my strongest memory of this entire controversy was actually I was going to a job interview and I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about it, and I don't know why that of all things is what has stuck out in my head almost a year later.
Which podcast? I'd be curious which one that was.
Fuck, I actually don't even remember which one. I listened to a number of podcasts.
It was the Harvey Weinstein Weekly Podcast.
Yes. But regardless, if I remember, I'll tell you.
No, you're good. But I was just curious because I remember there was a little bit of traction, but that didn't really get a lot of news coverage, thankfully. That was one of those ones where, like, oh my god. When I saw it starting to blow up, I was worried it would turn into a bigger deal than it was. It was a way bigger deal, like, on Twitter and, like, on forums and stuff, but I will say, in another moment of me being really proud of the community I've helped foster, there was literally a thread or two for a day in our Facebook group. People kind of talked about it. We eventually ended up being like, hey, how many of us are all natural Japanese speakers? We realized there were not a lot of us. It started coming out that the actual translation was wrong. And then we just kind of moved on and went about our day. No one was doing any fucking like, oh, we're going to boycott this release, we're going to cancel this, blah, 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 blah. So thankfully I kind of stayed out of it. it's just always has stayed as like that thorn in my side of just like, I hate that it happened. Not because it upset me or affected me in any way. I just hate part of the like kind of culture we live in of just like throw everyone under the bus, have a trial by fire never, and move about your day because it didn't actually affect you until it does.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly. A great man once said, I think a very famous Persona 2 and 5 protagonist once said, "We do live in a society."
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
I know some people don't like her, but I definitely, for when it comes to like just kind of cancel culture stuff, and I don't want to be on this for too much because I don't want the podcast to like go in that direction for too long, but I highly recommend the video by ContraPoints about cancel culture because I think it really hits on every single point and summarizes the problem with it very well.
All right. I don't really have too much more to kind of say about it myself. Do you guys have any other final thoughts, or should we move on to a less outrageous topic?
Let's
fuck
move
Reset
on.
Era.
as I
Era
now close out my tab for Reset Era.
Yay!
All right, so our next release in the Atlus 2019 year in review, and our last real game that we're kind of talking about, is another Nintendo 3DS game. This is Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth. Who here picked up the game?
Not me. I emulated it.
Ew! You didn't even buy it?
I mean, I bought it. I just haven't played it on my 3DS because I prefer playing 3DS games on a computer.
All right. If you bought it and you could show me proof, I will less judge you for emulating it.
Oh, okay. I mean, okay, I didn't buy it. It was gifted to me.
What does that mean?
My girlfriend at the time got it for me.
Okay, all right. There is someone bought a copy. Then that is fine. I will allow it to pass on. Mac, what about yourself?
I have not played this game. The only 3DS games that I really plan on playing from this point on ever again is, at least for right now, is the Ace Attorney games, because I've still been going through those. I was going through those for a long time, and I'm just very slow on playing them. And I am currently on Spirit of Justice, and I am just working my way through that. But yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't play it.
Has the Q series like interested you at all, or just like the gameplay being entry and honestly just not really doing anything for you?
It's kind of a mix of things where it really is just those games exist to be fan service, and like I definitely enjoy like P3 characters and even like the P5 characters and stuff, but I'm not the target audience. I just don't care enough to want that to like really want to get into that.
I wish it was dubbed. Yeah. But then again, that probably would have cost too much. And like the thing that pisses me off the most about Persona Q2 is the fact that it's a 3DS game in 2019. Like, why are we still trying to keep this thing alive? Just let it die. And that's the reason I emulated it, because like I don't know if this is like a hot take or not, but like the 3DS is probably my least favorite handheld from Nintendo, and it's not because I'm a live.
That is an ice cold take, especially in this group.
It's because of the design of the console itself. Like it's just uncomfortable. Like I just don't like it. I'd rather play games on a computer.
So there's a lot to break down there that you just complained. I'll let you pick. What do you want to get into first? Why it is on the 3DS, or why we didn't get a dub?
Well, I know why it's on the 3DS. It's because they already had the engine for Persona Q, and they're just like, hey, let's just we'll make some new assets for Persona 5, and then we'll just like we'll like cut and paste the gameplay for Persona Q with.
I think you were being
while addressing the things that were wrong with Persona Q1, and then we'll just put it on the 3DS because we can't put it on the Switch.
I think that is a gross over summary of what that game is. Like, that game is a full-blown ass sequel. I think the laziest part of that whole game ends and begins with the fact that they only added in aspects from Persona 3 Portable and Persona 5.
Well, if it's basically like if it's basically a sequel, then why put it on the 3DS? Why not put it on the Switch?
I think they're still waiting.
Because that developer, like, their tool sets, it would have taken them so much longer, and I'm sure by the time the Persona Q team was making that game, like, they make the Etrian Odyssey games pretty fast by, like, RPG standards, but at the same time, it's important to remember that as a small team, that game does not have a huge budget. Like, the Persona Q games probably are the biggest budgeted Etrian Odyssey games that exist. But the thing about that that's important to remember is at the time that game was in development, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it entered active development in 2017, so a year after Persona 5 came out.
We can actually check that that Persona Central thing to see.
Did that article actually mention Persona Q2?
Yes, it did. I'll pull it back up.
Man, look at you being all fancy pantsy. So
who would have thought that would have been relevant?
as we were like, hey, is this gonna be relevant? Nah, we'll fuck it. All right, I'm pulling it up as well right now. See, I was thinking that was just for main Atlus games. So let's see.
Nope.
We are talking about timelines in development. Wow, this is really
Q2 started development kind of mid 2016, it seems.
What color are you looking at? Holy shit.
It's the pink.
Pink. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so basically summer 2016, Persona Q2. That is an insane fucking development time for this. Holy shit. Okay, I was giving them.
Real talk.
Even
if it is a full blown sequel, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt in the sense of like, wow, you know what? This is actually a lot more. Okay, so we're going off of a. Where was the source for this, by the way?
I don't know. Let's take a look at what Persona Central is. It does say it's estimated, but
still.
That could just
I'm trying to see where they got this from. So yeah, we are getting this from Persona Central, but Persona Central is getting this from. Let's see.
If none of this is true, blame Persona Central.
Thanks, Reggie.
Reggie.
Can be read in a previous post along with ever since Persona 5 would be very important. Is this just all him getting it from interviews and stuff, I wonder?
I think it might be.
Okay, yeah, because there's not like a specific here's where you're getting this from. Okay, and this will actually help us bring a couple of interesting notes out, because most people don't know, in Western development culture, a lot of the time when the game is in active development, when the game goes gold, and like the game is content complete and finished, not even putting DLC and whatnot into it, an example, that game is getting put to print and getting sold as soon as humanly possible. And if you're looking at this figure, you can kind of actually see Atlus, when their games are done, there is a gestation period of a few months. Like, they wait for that game, like, they really, like, bug test the holy hell out of their games. Like a reason people don't really understand why I say this, but when we saw Persona sorry, my bad. When we saw Persona 5 Scramble, good example, let's see. That game finished development in November. We had that big trailer blowout, what, John? Was that October or November?
I think it was November.
Yeah, like that game finished development when that second trailer came out. And it's releasing in February. Persona 5R finished active development in summer of 2019 in Japan, released October. So, like, they basically finish their games, sit on them, make sure everything is squared, wait a couple of months for marketing and things to get printed. It's not like a mad dash to the finish line as opposed to, like, Western development stuff. So going back, though, to Persona Q2, this is really interesting. Persona Q2 started around mid-2016. So, according to this chart, basically around the same time Persona 5 finished development, but before release. And it was being developed over the course of 2 years, and this is pre-Switch when this would have been happening. Important to remember, Atlus did not get development hardware for the Switch until late 2016, early 2017 when SMT5 got announced. When SMT5 got announced, there was no... they weren't in active development till basically the Switch was out. The game was in pre-production, but it was not in active development.
Pre-production.
Exactly. So, the interesting thing about this is you are Atlus. You are not a huge company. The 3DS is the largest Nintendo system right now that has a market of over 50 plus million users, and the Switch is yet to come out, which will be a HD console. Yes, it is a hybrid, but it is still an HD-like system to develop for. What are you going to put the sequel to this 3DS game that you already have an engine for on a much smaller team? What are you going to develop it for? Yes, hindsight, after the release of the Switch, when the Switch came out, we weren't there day one going, yo, what the fuck's the 3DS doing here? By the time, Samus Returns came out, after that first summer, once we had time to use our Switch, we were like, okay, the 3DS can kind of go away now. We don't really need the 3DS. But, when that system got announced, people didn't immediately think, okay, the 3DS is dead now. That was a gradual effect that,
Well, didn't they also release the new 2DS XL after the Switch?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yes, that released summer 2017, the new 2DS XL.
Man, I love Nintendo and their naming conventions.
I just am disgusted in the fact that I know so much about it, and it is very, very bad. But yeah, so going back to why is it 3DS? Entered development before the Switch released. No one knew the Switch was going to be good until the Switch released. Remember, their last home console was their last console and release in general, because the 3DS was 2011, the Wii U was 2012, and was a dramatic failure for all of its years in the market. So if you're Atlus, why the fuck would you put all of your time and money into a sequel for an already very niche spin-off of a niche series on a HD bit of hardware? Because remember, as going back to the beginning of the show, the only reason SMT5 is probably on the Switch announced this early, because Nintendo went up to them and said, hey, we need some big boys. Give us a big boy.
Give us the big boy that's associated with us.
Now is associated with us.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
So yeah, that is why it is on the 3DS. Development takes a long time, small team. Remember, this is the company who released Persona 4 in 2008, 2 years after the PS3. They're not known for being the most quick on the draw.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it is so easy for us to say, hey, what were they thinking? Insert angry video game nerd here. Also important to remember, this game released Persona Q. It released October of 2018. So there was a good long while between October of 2018 and summer, because I think we got it June of 2019. So I don't think it's fair to say, hey, why are they doing this? In the sense of, we got it so late because guess what? This is not a priority translating for them. Hence why we didn't even get it dubbed. I think the only reason we didn't get it dubbed is not because of the type of game it is. It is literally because of the platform the game was on.
That was the case with every Atlus 3DS game towards the end. I was initially pissed off about Strange Journey.
That's the weird thing. Strange Journey, at that point, you could kind of give or take, because guess what? The Radiant Historia remake, that was fully dubbed. And so was Etrian
Strange
Odyssey
Journey,
5.
a lot of people were pissed off about, but in retrospect, it makes complete sense.
It's just such a kick in the nuts, especially for the dub thing, because I know a lot of people, including myself, there has never been a more fitting game to be voiced by not Japanese people than Strange Journey.
It's the one where they canonically speak English.
In the Western version, that is. But yeah, still.
Well, yeah.
That'd be fantastic if somehow in the Japanese release they say, hey, my name is Jimenez, but I do speak Japanese.
And then another thing is, I don't know, just everything about Redux's release seems lazy. Because another thing is, the part in the beginning where like you're introducing yourself to Gore, and then Gore's like another American A. Well, in the way it's voiced, he still says that you're Japanese.
You're
like,
right.
If you're gonna,
yeah, he
if
does.
You're gonna
He does say that. That is an interesting point. He doesn't call you a gaijin or even anything. So it's very uneven.
As much as I want that game to be dubbed, like, if you're just gonna keep the original language, then maybe just keep the text so that it matches the voice. Just make it so I'm playing a Japanese guy.
Imagine now. I know this is not the Atlus 2018 in review, but imagine how amazing. The Japanese studio dub would be. I'm talking Sega Dreamcast era dubs, where they get all the voice actors from Japan that speak English, but it is written from a Japanese writer's perspective via Google Translate. So basically what I'm saying is, imagine if SMT Deep Strange Journey was dubbed by the Shenmue cast.
Imagine if... Well, you know what? You know what they should have done? This would probably help save them on a dub costs, and it would still let us get a dub. They should have done what that one hentai did, where they got the entire original Japanese cast to come back and do the English dub.
What hentai is that?
I don't know, but I love it.
I'm ready to Google search this afterwards. That's fantastic. So yeah,
I know is I want every Japanese property to do that now, because it's fucking hilarious.
So that kind of covers why 3DS was a thing. By the way, just to kind of put people in a state of mind for what Atlus as a company was doing when this is in development, do you guys remember how Atlus celebrated SMT turning 25?
Yeah.
Yes.
Barely.
They announced first at the Nintendo event SMT 5, and then Deep Strange Journey coming out that year on 3DS. Think of how polar opposite those two releases probably were in terms of time and budget.
So yeah.
So I think that is everything you kind of really need to know in terms of why is this a 3DS game not really on the Switch. Because yes, porting it to the Switch would be the preferred way to play that game. I think even in now's market, I don't think there is any SMT game on 3DS, even counting Persona Q and Q2. I don't think any of those could recoup their development and interest people enough. Are there any SMT games on 3DS that if we just did a straight port, maybe make things widescreen or whatever, up the textures a bit, but the bare minimum port, what game do you really think could resonate with audiences who already didn't play it on 3DS?
Honestly, I know you already shot it down, but I honestly think SMT4, if it didn't have those restrictions.
Well, remember, I shot it down for PC. In this situation, it's going from Nintendo to Nintendo, so there's really no reason.
I misunderstood. Then yeah, 4. It would probably be a lot of work to overhaul it, but I think 4 definitely.
I would love that, but it's just I don't think SMT4 as a game can do enough in a reasonable budget to show itself off as a even $40 Switch game, which, knowing Atlus, it would be $60.
Oh man.
Oh, you know what? I'll say this. This would be a real stretch, and would be a very not Atlus thing. But if they seriously just took the SMT4 Double Hero Pack that just put 4 and Apocalypse into a box, if they made that into one cohesive game experience where basically what Digimon did recently with the Cyber Sleuth games, just packing both of those onto the Switch, I think that would be the best case scenario of least work needed and could still get people interested. Because if you put that box art on Switch of do you guys remember the box I'm talking about? It's the half and half shows Nanashi and Flynn with the green and the white. It's a really, really cool box art.
It looks awesome.
Very expensive. I was a little glad when I found out it's just a cardboard box, because a part of me thought it was actually both games on one 3DS cartridge, but it is just a box to hold 2 boxes.
Oh, I thought it was a singular plastic box. It just had two cartridges
there's
in
not
it.
a lot of stuff on there, but thankfully, yeah, LaRue has a copy and was able to show me it is just a cardboard box to hold both 3DS cases. But yeah, going back though to Persona Q2. So there's a lot of factors going into this probably being the trying to think if this is a bold enough thing or accurate enough statement. Would you guys guess that this probably sold worse than Dancing? Because in my opinion, I feel like no one talked about this game when it came out. Absolutely nobody covered it.
Atlus USA at the time.
I mean, they barely sent out any review copies. I do remember Persona Q2 getting leaked on Amazon. By leaked, I mean they just sent it out like 3 weeks early.
Do you think that they were stingent about review copies because Amazon had been shipping the collector's editions a month in advance?
Probably. I mean, and also the 3DS is hacked to pieces right now, so they probably just thought it was going to... Like, people wanted to play early. Probably just thought it was going to leak anyway.
Wide open the 3DS is, and people will still release shit for it, where then people will go like, oh, you can't justify a Vita game. Like, the Vita, like, just recently, within, like, the last calendar year, has really started to get broken open in terms of, like, people sideloading games onto it. Like, it just now kind of got as broke as the 3DS has been since, what, like, 2014? Like, the 3DS broke so early.
I remember I
thought the 3DS didn't get hacked until, like, 2016.
No, I remember it being a lot more easy. Because remember, like, 2014, 2015 was, like, back in the day when, like, you needed Cube Ninja to hack it. Whereas, like, really now, just about, like, a toaster can, like, sideload stuff onto a 3DS.
I remember that when the 3DS was coming out, Nintendo made a big stink about how they were really cracking down on piracy with it. That they were trying a bunch of new stuff to try and like prevent piracy and all this kind of stuff. And Rooster Teeth even made a sketch about it. It was pretty funny from what I remember. And then the 3DS turned into what it is now.
The only thing that's a bigger laughingstock in terms of how quickly that thing got jailbroken into holy hell is the Switch. Nintendo was lucky that people are big into collecting their games because the Switch has got to be the quickest Nintendo platform that has ever got jailbroke. But I mean,
without doubt,
it literally just runs off like Nvidia tech that like was already 2 years old at release, so I don't think people are that surprised.
Yeah, it's.
But I kind of want to go back though to Persona Q as like being a like really really poorly like sold game. To me, it feels like the least talked about as well as just like the least like well selling, in the sense of just like it sucks because I have not beaten the game. I've put quite a bit of time into it. The game is an improvement on almost every manner from the first one, minus the dub. That obviously doesn't speak to its original release, though. The music is the best Persona soundtrack in the entire series. Even if you guys don't have any interest in ever playing Persona Q or Persona Q2, it is the best soundtrack that team has ever done, and has got some of the most catchy themes, and the battle track is insane. Which honestly, if you played Persona Q, like I know John, you played a lot more Persona Q than Persona Q2 as well. Like I know you're not that crazy into those kind of games, but like even you could probably like tell everyone that like I'm not speaking too like out of my own ass right now. It's like Persona Q has got a fantastic soundtrack, right?
Yeah, it's great.
So this one basically took that entire team, added Persona 5 elements into it, and then somehow found a way to make what is a better soundtrack than even Persona 5, which I think it's still safe to say that's probably, in terms of like, I'm the most basic Hot Topic Persona fan out there, like P5 is like the safe choice of what people think of a good Persona music right now, right?
I'm a Persona 5 fan. I've only ever been interested in Persona 5. Also, I've never played Persona 5. That kind of fan.
No, we're not going to get into that thing. I've always kind of thought that was really weird as like an argument, just because of how many different mediums you can experience that game through. Whereas like if someone was a fan of, like, I met a lot of people growing up after doing this podcast who literally found out about us and their only experience with the series is I watched the Persona 4 anime. Which is like, I've watched that anime. That's a pretty good anime. Like, there is some problems to it and stuff, and yeah, there's multiple chies and shots at times. But, like, at the end of the day, that's still a good anime because that's a great cast and a great story.
What I'll say, I don't want to.
That's actually how sorry.
I don't want to get too much into this debate because I think it's something that could actually, like, it could be its own topic overall, and I just find it really interesting. But personally, I feel like there's a difference between Persona 5 the game and Persona 5 the brand or the franchise. Because Atlus really does treat each Persona game as their own separate franchise, and I feel like there is kind of like somewhat of a difference to be made. I'm not trying to be like gatekeeping or anything, because I remember when this was going around like a week or so ago, there was accusations of that. But I think it's a very interesting topic. I think it's a very interesting topic that kind of warrants its own little discussion.
Yeah, I definitely get that as well. Trying, though, to go back to things that the game does right, I think the game, Persona Q2 just suffers from that weird situation of it failed in almost every aspect of being critically successful just due to lack of people actually giving it media attention. Critically unsuccessful, financially unsuccessful, very unsuccessful in terms of the fans. Like, there are fans who played it, but just that subsection of us are so little because not as many of us are still playing the 3DS daily on 2019 and even beyond. It sucks because I think in the end that game is going to be remembered as a really, really good game, but we're in this weird period of it came out with the volume of a wet fart on mute, and anyone who was allowed to hear it is basically in a vacuum, and the chance of that game really growing in its market is going to be pretty it's going to be pretty hard to kind of leave its obscurity bubble that is the 3DS right now, just because that platform is in such a weird little state of, like, it's not like it's hard to bring a 3DS game onto a modern platform. It is hard to justify it. So I think Persona, at the end of the day, honestly, and I haven't beaten it, but I've put quite a bit of time into it, and I plan on, once I'm kind of done with some of the more recent stuff happening in early 2020, I do really want to go and kind of make that my portable game for a while and try and fully beat it, at least one of the sides. I don't think it would be that controversial to say that Persona Q2 was probably the best game Atlus released in the West. Like, and I loved Katherine Full Body, but at the end of the day, that's still more re-release than new game. And
it's a 2010 game
for me. But not a lot of people are going to play it. A lot of people are just gonna hear it and move on. But I don't know. It's frustrating and it's weird, and hopefully at some point, I don't know, maybe we can do like a book club and have a fucking fundraiser for this sad little sick child known as 3DS exclusives. But
yeah, much like how there's currently a fundraiser going to save some games from the hell that is being Wii U exclusive.
Yeah. Now,
gamers, am I
all
right?
we need is Fatal Frame and
Xenoblade X.
Yeah, Fatal Frame and Xenoblade X. Then I can finally get rid of that piece of shit.
Hot take, and I love Monolith.
A very hot take. Having anything negative to say about the Wii U makes me a 13-year-old Sony fanboy, plays nothing but Call of Duty and calls everybody the N-word, apparently.
That guy proved you so wrong, man. You are such a fanboy.
Tell me about it.
That sounds pretty accurate. No, one of the things I was going to say, though, very cold hot take, at least for me, and this is coming from a big Monolith fanboy. Xenoblade Chronicles X is probably their worst Xeno game.
I heavily disagree.
It's very ambitious. It has a very unique score. It does some crazy stuff in terms of its world building, but I feel like in the ways that I love and also can heavily criticize Final Fantasy XIII's trilogy, I could do just about as much with the trilogy that is Xenoblade Chronicles. Obviously, quality-wise, Xenoblade Chronicles does a lot more in terms of overall good compared to the 13 trilogy, but like X just takes some interesting turns, and I think that game did not sell well, not because it was a Wii U exclusive, but just because that is just not an everybody kind of game. Like Xenoblade Chronicles as its own is already like, it's not like a easy pick up and play, recommend to your mom and dad RPG, but like X just kind of cranked it up a notch in terms of its unwelcomingness to new people.
Well, Xenoblade X still sold well for itself, considering everything. It still sold well for considering, but it very much is like Monolith. It's easily, definitely the worst selling Xeno game, but even still, it sold decently well for itself, considering.
Any final words anyone here would like to say about Persona Q2, or recommendations for if they have any future plans with the Q2?
One thing, I've been thinking this for a little bit. I know it is like a 3DS game, and there is that kind of frustration of like, oh, why 3DS? I'm kind of glad it's 3DS, if only because I feel like Etrian Odyssey should be the one to figure out how to make Etrian Odyssey work on not the DS. So yeah, just that's about it. Actually, that's it.
John, any final words before we go QQ?
Not really.
So somehow we've spent a lot of time talking on different aspects I was definitely not expecting for. One of the big Atlus things that happened in 2019 was the Persona 5R Wear the Mask reveal. At this point, I think it's just easier to just recommend everyone listen to episode 150 of the show a couple of weeks back and just listen to our summary of the dumpster fire that happened in December.
No, what are you talking about? Fansite was like, it's great.
It's great. It's everything.
No,
what about the cum
not.
stain? What cum stain?
That was my cum stain.
7-Eleven, that's my favorite Persona 5.
CVS, dog. You're doing it wrong if you're not at the CVS. Our final bit we are going to talk about before we give our score and judge the critics we are. We are going to the official Atlus.com for their news section, which was only ever updated once. October 21st, 2009, our only update from the Atlus newsletter, or the Atlus news section. This was to basically announce that the Atlus USA store is closing. Does not say if it will be a permanent close. It does say, though, that they still have everyone and their mom who's willing to pay a licensing fee, such as Fangamer, Figpin, 86, Sanchi, even Hot Topic. Will still have tons of Persona 5, Atlus merch. But they will no longer be selling stuff directly on their online store. And I think it's safe to say nobody is sad. Mainly due to the fact that the Atlus store was a pretty subpar experience for at least for us Westerners, in the sense of it was almost never updated. Stuff was pretty pricey.
It was updated once.
You could probably say twice. I think it's safe to say updating it to close it counts as an update. Does anyone here have any actual memories, or did they actually buy anything? I always meant to buy like the hoodies and whatnot, but the price always scared me off for the longest time. But does anyone here have any like memories that they want to share or purchases?
Not really.
I always wanted to get a Jack Frost plush, but LaRue has shown me a way to get one of the cooler, better looking, they look better made ones that are coming out of Japan, but also for cheaper. So yeah, I don't really care to. In retrospect, I don't really care to. I don't regret not buying anything. My only other memory is I actually really enjoyed spending an entire afternoon making a timeline of Atlus's online store and every single mention for a video that I'm hoping to do with LaRue about it. So yeah,
John,
great memories.
John, any other final words for a eulogy of the Atlus USA store?
Not really. I don't think I ever bought anything from there.
I was gonna say you're quite a frugal man, and if I didn't buy anything, I would have been very surprised if you bought anything.
I'm poor.
Did you? Well, yeah, but you also go to AX. Did you ever buy anything at AX whenever you would go from their booth?
Yeah, well, last year I bought the Jack Frost Mochibi plush, and what else did I buy? Oh, well, I mean, they also gave me one of those Vincent headband things, but that's about it.
Okay. I don't really think anyone said that it's gone. It's sad that it was more wasted potential. For the longest time, I thought that they should do what companies like NIS America and Idea Factory do, where they do special store exclusive items like limited editions. Hey, you know what would have been a really fucking great seller in a way for Persona 3 Dancing to not sell like total shit? Make the Vita versions physically available at their online shop, and I guarantee that would have at least sold 5,000 copies on each version. Just because, hey, guess what? They've never done that before. Companies like Limited Run and like East Asia Soft like did that all the time, and this is with like a huge product like that. I'd actually been recommending they do something like that since John Harden days. If you guys remember, do you guys actually remember what John Harden's last Atlus game he worked on as press was?
Oh,
Apocalypse.
God,
No.
oh God, no, I remember
P5.
it was news when it happened.
Nope. You guys will not get this because this game is super not remembered, even though it is kind of Persona related.
God, I can't remember.
The Caligula effect on
That
the
was it.
PlayStation Vita.
That
Wow.
was it.
Yep. That was a digital-only release, a game that they had announced over a year ago. If you guys remember, the announcement for the Caligula effect was one E3. At the end of it, like E3, I think the year before it came out, like 2014 or 15, John Harden just tweeted, "Hey, we're bringing out Caligula to America." 1 year later, it's called the Caligula effect. It's digital only. No one bought it. Because guess what? It's a fucking $40 digital-only game on Vita, and most of the Vita collectors out there either like cheap, quick games that are not a lot to download and don't want to pay like $40 for like half their memory card to get full up. But that's okay. Most people don't actually remember Caligula as a game to begin with, but I like to recommend it because it is a weird game. But before we end, just curious, do either of you two... I know the game would be up your alley, but I'm curious if you guys have any... have you guys actually tried it or have any interest to try it, especially now that it's come to PC, Switch, and PS4?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna get it on PC.
I
would talk to
I'm not
LaRue
sure.
about that before you do, because I think he said the PC version's pretty ass. Because I know NIS America has a really bad track record with PC stuff.
Oh, well, Danganronpa had some pretty good PC ports.
That was actually handled by Spike Chunsoft directly. They funded the guys, this is a really weird, I don't remember their name, but the guys who ported Hotline Miami to PS3, 4, and Vita. I think their name was Abstraction Games. Abstraction Games did the ports to PS4 and PC for Danganronpa, which are why they're so good.
Nice.
And this is what happens when you learn useless information that will never get you laid. Speaking of never getting us laid, let's end this fucking podcast. How's that sound, guys?
please.
I'm hungry, so yes.
I gotta go to sleep. I need to be up. I go into work at 8 tomorrow.
All right, so we are going to wrap this up with our Atlus 2019 year in review, mainly talking about the western side of Atlus with... I will let you guys pick. Do you guys want to do a letter grade or a number grade?
Letter grade.
Letter.
All right, we'll do letter grade. Mac, I will let you go first, so that way you can pretend like you're getting out of here quicker, even though we all know you won't.
Yeah. My immediate thought is probably like C plus, B minus. But I feel like part of it is just the fact that this year like a lot. It was just so happened that a lot of stuff for Atlus just didn't line up for this year. I don't think it's necessarily Atlus did poorly. I think it's just things just didn't line up. And maybe that score is a bit too harsh, but that's just kind of what's immediately coming to mind.
John, how about yourself?
I'd say a C plus. Cause like, I mean, if it weren't for that whole disastrous thing that happened in like when they were revealing Persona 5R, I'd say probably a B. But
So,
like,
just curious, what makes it a B for you? Just from what you played, or just kind of the lack of offensive stuff for you?
it's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it could be my bias because like it just doesn't seem to me like Atlus is like getting as involved with their community, and just like, and also there's the whole having to wait 7 months for releases thing. Like Persona Q, that actually came out in 2018, but we didn't get it until the summer on the 3DS.
Yeah, that one we had to wait
I don't know.
almost 10 months for. That was 9.5 by the time we got it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. It just seems that they're just not. Well, I guess not getting involved with their community isn't the right way to say it. They're just kind of. They're just not. They just don't. It doesn't seem like they care about their Western fan base as much.
I mean, I don't know really why you kind of have to sugarcoat it. Like, I love Atlus, and I've been covering them since even before the John Harden days of, like, Aram Jabari. Like, it's not that controversial to say that, like, their community involvement at being its very nicest is selective. They talk to us when they want to. It's not like they can't do it. It's literally they have either handicaps or restraints that they either can't or just don't want to talk to us about, and it leaves us kind of feeling out in the cold. Like, no community should feel like getting a customer support email about the development of a game back as a big deal in terms of communication. Like, that would be the equivalent of, like, is if someone emailed Square Enix saying, guys, are you going to do another Final Fantasy game? And the customer support guy says, I can't tell you anything, but it's happening. It's just like, that's kind of like the sad state of where we're at. Like, whereas, like, you can joke about it, but at the same point, you probably shouldn't have let it get to that point. Maybe one day we can have them on to discuss this, but that is its own multi-year-long journey. I've kind of described already a bit of my feelings on the PR side of things for my review. I am kind of surprised. I didn't think I would be the most low score. I'm giving them a D+. They get a D+ for me in the sense of I'm counting D as average. I'm thinking of that as over 60%. I'm not thinking of that as second to worst. I give them a high D, if it makes you feel any better. I give them a high D in the sense of I loved their port from Katherine on Vita. I really loved that we actually got Persona Q2 at the end of the day, because guess what? The fact there was a good chance that I legitimately thought we just might not get that, and if we did, it'd be digital only. So the fact that exists and we got a collector's edition for it, I thought it was fine. I think they did a pretty good job with a lot of their physical stuff they did for Catherine Full Body and Persona Q2's collector's editions, but so many misses in the sense of why was Persona 5R revealed and not Scramble? Like that game. Oh my god. I literally think that game's going to release in Japan in like less than 2 weeks before it's announced for a worldwide release, and it just kind of blows my mind. Like, there's just so many things kind of going on with that company that are like, okay, I get what you're doing. Like, it makes sense to me, but at the same point, you have to realize your fans aren't living in a closed-off ecosystem. All of your fans who know what Persona 5 Royal is also know that Scramble is a thing. When a new trailer for Scramble comes out, IGN doesn't not upload it because it wasn't announced. They still upload it because guess what? It says Persona. People are following these games. Like, I don't know if I said this specifically to LaRue or if it was just in our, like, Discord chat. I seriously think this is true. I legitimately feel like in the overall fandom, at least for, like, my community that I've built up around and who I see on, like, Twitter and Facebook every day, there is more general interest for the Japanese-only release of Scramble than the worldwide release for Persona 5 Royal, which should not be the case. But everyone I've talked to, including myself, are more excited for Scramble.
Yeah, me too.
I've allotted my time. I will say this. I think 2020 is going to be a really great year for them if a lot of their cards kind of hit. I think Scramble's going to be a win. We're going to find out soon. We'll be playing the demo this week. All the initial coverage for it has been super fucking perb. I will be very curious to see what happens after the preview embargo is lifted later in February. For Royal specifically. Also, do you guys like how Atlus Atlus set one of their big media info dump days for Persona 5 Royal is the Japanese release of Scramble?
It's almost like they're trying to get people to talk about Royal and not talk about Scramble.
I mean, it's funny because like there's a big PR event happening like the day we're recording this podcast for Persona 5
like
Royal.
I think right now.
But like the weird thing though that like I don't think anyone's really brought up is why are they going to have to wait so long for coverage? I'm probably the only one here who has like the closest kind of comparison to being like covering media events and different coverage like that. A good example, I was flown out to LA by Square Enix for Lightning Returns to get, I don't know if it was for its official unveiling, but it was like really, really close to it being officially unveiled. At the very least, it was like the first time gameplay had ever been shown off. So this was like 2012, and I got flown out to LA for coverage with a bunch of other fan sites and stuff who were covering Final Fantasy. And we saw the game. We saw the game being played in front of us. We had all the producers and like the actual team like being there. We could like interview them and talk with them for a bit. There was like a big just group thing. And that preview coverage, like we had hours of footage we got to look and go over, and we didn't even get our hands on it. But like there was still a ton of information to like go through of. The preview embargo was the next day. If you were actual like normal like journalists and stuff, you saw it the day before. But like there was like a 2-day limit really for all of that preview coverage. Having to wait all of this long for a enhanced version of a game that came out almost 3 years ago, it's just like seems weird because like I think in everyone's head we all kind of expected the preview coverage was going up this week, right? Not at the end of this month.
Yeah.
So gonna be really weird. I hope the preview coverage is more interesting than I think it's going to be. I'm really worried that Atlus is going to spend all this money on preview coverage that will equate to journalists not caring and one very happy fanboy getting flown out who will do many
not
things.
Be named.
Who will be very happy that it happened.
Be very happy, call it an immense success, and yeah, that's about all I can really say right now. And nothing's coming to my mind.
Is it mean to say that unless I'm proven wrong, we still haven't seen any other community or other members from the SMT/Persona community get invited to the P5R preview event? Is it safe to say that like they basically make a Wish Foundation fan site to be like the only like influencer there?
Yeah.
I'm like just thinking about it now, and I'm like, if I was him, I would be weird. Like I would feel uncomfortable being the only person who's not a traditional like journalist like person covering the event. Not even like as like a insult on him, and this is just more of a what are you thinking Atlus kind of thing.
Oh man, that's a really funny way to put that. Yeah, it really would be. It is really weird that they seem as far as we can tell, he is the only person not from a website that was flown out.
Yeah, like.
Or even asked to go, because remember, There are local people who are also not attending.
Yeah, like LaRue.
That man would actually, like, be the busboy to even just go into that event.
I mean, if they invited me, they wouldn't even have to buy me tickets. I'd just drive down there and go to it. But I wasn't
Hold on,
invited.
John,
So.
have you made a half cross-country drive before?
The furthest I've ever, I think, the furthest I've ever driven is to Dubuque, Iowa.
Alright, let me tell you as my only comparison, this is still a tremendous amount of distance, is Kansas to Arizona is a grueling, like, 25 hours of driving.
Did you, okay, and that on together, did you drive?
No, fuck no. I did that when I was a kid visiting my family in Kansas when I used to live in Arizona. I swore to myself after when we moved from Arizona to Kansas in like 2004, I swore to myself I would never make that drive, and I flew every time since then. That is a rough trip, and California is not a small state, so adding an extra big-ass state to that would be even harder. That being said, we need to feed people. We need to get out of here. Mac, where can people find you online? Where do you want people to stalker you?
I want them to stalk me at 11329 Racine Drive. No,
I wish that was like your real address. I wish you had the balls to do that.
You can find me at Macca on Twitter, on YouTube, and that's it. I just put out a video. It's me reviewing every game I played in 2019, 23 games. It's not every game I played, but it's basically every game that I got like a bunch of time with that I could really feel like I could give an opinion on. But go check that out. And I'm actually doing a video on Katherine Full Body, kind of like I'm currently trying to work on a video just talking about all the new content and my thoughts and feelings, as well as just how it kind of all works together with the original game.
Well, don't forget to talk about Rapunzel, because there's a lot of new levels in Rapunzel people often forget to talk about.
Oh man, Rapunzel. I love Rapunzel.
It's Katherine if you actually hate yourself, because that game is
hard.
John, where can people find you online? Preferably your address.
We can find me on my Twitter. It's crawling_Nyarly, and you can also find me on YouTube, where I upload Persona and Megaton videos. Earlier today, I uploaded a quote-unquote review for Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but it wasn't really a review, and it just kind of came off rushed, so I delisted it, and now I'm working on trying to turn it into a proper game review, so look forward to that.
So are you giving me the go ahead to go back to your video, upload it on a new account, call it the unarchived Gnarly videos, and get all the ad revenue for all your hard work? Can I do that?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think what I might do is I might post it on my second channel.
Yeah, you know what? That'd be good for preservation. You can.
Why didn't I think of that? I'll just do it
now. Anything else you wanna pimp though besides the channel and Twitter?
Well, I'm getting ready to start a podcast. I'm calling it the Meggy Dolan Podcast.
Is it Meggy Dolan cute?
Yes.
How about that Meggy Dolan smile?
Yes.
Does anyone feel brave enough to do the Persona 4 dancing announcement trailer guy's voice?
No.
I actually don't remember his voice.
He's like he has an actual name. I forget the actor's name, but I'll have to insert it right at the end of the show for it. But just the way he does it, it's that perfect mixture of he knows English, but he just can't not sound Japanese. Of just the way he says it's Megadolon cute. It's very it's very it sounds super bad when I say it. When you hear him say it, you go, okay, you give him the pass. It's for a music game. I get it. If you would like to follow me somehow, I'm sorry. You can follow me, though, on Twitter at Torchwood4SP. You can find my channel where I upload the podcast and a bunch of other stuff on YouTube by just searching my name, Spencer Presley, or Shin Megami Tensei Network. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at SMT Network. You can follow our group and join it with all the other members if you'd like to discuss by going to facebook.com/groups/SMTN. /SMT Network. And you can also find the podcast on services like iTunes, where reviews and everything else like that is super duper duper appreciated. I don't think I'm forgetting anything too big, so I guess if anyone else doesn't have anything else to say, I will make us all say goodbye, and I will say the final word for once. So say goodbye, everybody.
Oh,
Goodbye.
I have one last thing to say. You know how at the beginning of this podcast I made the joke about I was gonna play Tetris 99 the entire time.
Are you gonna tell me you just won?
No, I've been playing this entire time. I haven't won a single time.
You loser. You big loser.
I know.
Our final word is just gonna call you a loser, and then you're gonna hear the Persona 4 dancing guy talk.
Yay!
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. I'm gonna cut that out. That was actually too sad. It wasn't even funny. It was just sad. Goodbye, everybody.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? 今宵お届けするのは Bested Persona Sound. Here we go! リセクジカワ from ヤソイナバ。おばあちゃんちの豆腐屋手伝っていたみたいですが、この度見事にアイドルとして復帰。小悪魔的な魅力健在。藤川リセのダンスに Yo, check it out! Unbelievable! Could you imagine the step? He's genius! 我らがヒーロー、今度はダンスでシャドウをノックダウン。ニューフェイスカナミン。先輩アイドルリセチーに迫る物語にもぐんとリレーテッドしちゃうみたいです。Wow, this smile is メギドラ音級。リズムアクションなら Leave It To Me なディンゴとアトラス、かなりエーネスト。こう見えてもストーリーは濃厚。正真正銘ペルソナシリーズ。プレイステーションビータで送る本気の P サウンドアクション。ペルソナ4 Dancing All Night。Don't miss it, baby.
Why the fuck did Atlus let anything Sword Art touch them?